Hey there guys, today I'm going to do a discussion talking about fish finding electronics for ice fishing. And you really have two primary options when you're looking for ways to see what's below the ice. One is sonar or flashers, and the other is underwater camera systems. Now there's a lot to compare when considering these two. Obviously, if you can afford to do both, then it doesn't really matter. And when used in concert, they can be very powerful in terms of scouting and finding fish and then capturing those fish on film underwater, which is pretty cool. But a lot of us aren't going to be able to do that, and we're going to have to make a decision which way to go. Obviously, one of the big things that we've got to take into account is cost, and costs can vary considerably for both styles. Now, you can find ice fishing sonar units or flashers in the $200 range all the way up to $2,000. Similarly, cameras can go anywhere from about $150 up to well over $1,500 for some of the more complex camera systems. Obviously, the more you spend, you tend to get better features on both of these, and you also tend to get bigger screens as well. Next to consider is portability. In general, I'm going to say that most camera systems are a little bit more compact. They generally come in small soft-sided or hard-sided carrying cases. There's a few units that are bigger than this, but generally smaller. Most of my fish finding units tend to be pretty big, tend to be a little bit heavier, just because of the larger batteries involved with them. But I have seen some AquaView systems that are just as big as traditional fish finders. So I will give the slight advantage in terms of portability to camera systems. Now let's talk about the features of both of these in terms of scouting. And I think this is where they really differentiate themselves in terms of their strengths. When I'm out scouting and drilling a bunch of new holes and trying to look at the depths and the bottom structure, the sonar is very easy to do because I can walk along, I can drill a hole, I can drop this down, I'm going to instantly get a readout. And since I know how to read the bottom in terms of the strength reflection, and I can use the features on this, I instantly am getting depth. So if it's a really soft bottom and I'm seeing, and then a hard bottom below it, then I know it's probably weeds sticking up. If I'm seeing a hard bottom, then I know it's probably rocks or something like that. So I can get that very quickly. I can go along and I can very quickly ascertain the bathymetry if I drill along a series of holes, and I can get a rough idea of what's on the bottom. I can also see fish if they're suspended in the water column. If I have something like a $2,000 Panoptix unit, I can actually look outwards for 75 to 100 feet in all directions and get a better idea of what the bottom structure is. Okay, so now if I'm out scouting with my camera, it's not so simple. I have to take my camera out, drop it to the bottom, and then look on the screen and see what I'm doing. Now, this camera, the Mark & Pursuit, actually gives me the depth reading on the camera, so I know how deep I am when I get to the bottom, but I can't just rapidly ascertain how deep I am. Now that I'm down at the bottom here, I can now see those soft weeds that I was interpreting on the fish finder, and they are indeed a layer of soft weeds, which helps me to confirm that I actually know what I'm talking about when interpreting my sonar. So that's the nice thing about a camera, is there's no interpretation of signal. It's just look at the video and see what you got. And you can see the weeds down here. Now there is a bit of a caveat here. That is, if the lake is dirty or mucky, a camera isn't very useful. If there's low light conditions, some of these underwater camera systems will have infrared or even visible white light like this one, which allows me to peer into the darkness and see what's going on under the ice even at night or in low light situations. Whereas with my sonar, it doesn't matter if it's the dirtiest water on planet Earth, it can still transmit a signal through it. So it is actually a lot more resilient to different types of water conditions, whereas a camera is really only useful in those more clear water conditions. Some sonar units have a distinct advantage over cameras for scouting, and it's not just because they can look through dirty water, but a lot of these units, minus some of the old school flashers like Vexilar, have built-in GPS and mapping systems. So that allows you to already have maps loaded up of the lake you're going to, and you can look on the map where you're standing, and you're already going to know approximately how deep you are. And some of these maps are very detailed, and you can just go out, find humps and structure using just the maps itself. The camera doesn't provide that for you. Okay, so you have to go out and put that camera down there and take your time doing it. You know, the old school Vexilars, they don't give you that information either. So it depends on what you invest in. That's why I love like the Garmin Striker series, the Humminbird Helix series, the Garmin Echo series. Those built-in maps really make a big difference. And what's even better is on these Helix systems, they have auto chart live, and I can literally go out either in open water seasons and make my own highly detailed 1-foot interval maps. I can even do it on the ice here. I can drill a series of holes and create my own custom maps for my favorite ice fishing lakes and ponds. So even if there's not detailed maps available, I can build my own with just drilling a series of holes, or just taking the kayak or boat out and tooling around for an hour or two, and I can build my own custom maps that I can save on an SD card here. So again, another distinct advantage of sonar. So another thing that really separates sonar from cameras is just how much of the water column you're actually scouting with a sonar. So with a sonar, you're shooting down in a cone, and the further you get down, the wider that cone gets. So you can be scouting quite a bit of the water column. Whereas with a camera, it just has a limited range. Now you can vertically orient your camera so you're seeing a sort of cone-like area down below you, but that camera is limited in how far it can see. So, you know, maybe you can see 10, 15 feet in a really clear lake, or even 20 feet or more. But when you're fishing 30, 40, 50 feet deep, there's no way a camera is going to be able to let you see everything that's down below you, whereas a sonar does. And now if you have a camera horizontally oriented, like I've been doing today, you know, you're only going to be looking in one direction. So it really limits how much area you can actually see and scout effectively. So a camera does have its limitations on that. Sonar just does a much better job of allowing you to see more area, more water, and just detect more fish. Okay, so let's talk about fish identification. Now, obviously, if you know what species are available in the lake and there's only a few species available, then it doesn't really matter. When you see a fish on sonar, you have a pretty good idea what it is. But a lot of times you see a mark on the fish finder, you're not absolutely sure what species it is. You might be able to guess by how fast it's moving, or the depth that it's at, or the size of it, but it's really a guessing game. With cameras, there's no guessing game. Like, you are looking at the fish, and you can actually see the fish respond to your lure. You can see them put the lure in your mouth. Whereas on the sonar, I can see that blob moving around my lure, and I'm looking for action on the rod tip. But having used cameras for a while, there are many times where I'm watching it and I see the fish take the jig in the mouth, and I see nothing happen on my rod tip, even with a spring bobber. And that gives me the power to set the hook and catch more fish. So I definitely get higher conversions when using the camera, because I can see the fish take it in. This is especially true on those light bite days where the fish swim right up to the jig, they just slurp it in, and they don't move up or down. There's no response on the spring bobber. It's absolutely incredible to me. So that's where I've really seen an advantage with the cameras. I can identify the species, I can see how they are responding to my bait or lure in real time, and that makes all the difference. Now, one thing I have noticed when I'm running the camera, especially when I'm running the sonar together, is I more often will have fish come in and turn away when that camera's down there. Having that camera right down there in their face, they just seem a little bit spooked by the presence of that camera because it's right down at the same depth that they're feeding at. Obviously, you can get around that by reorienting the camera so it's vertical and shooting straight down. But it's definitely a much stronger presence than a sonar, which is just sitting up here at the top of the ice. The transducer is just floating, and they can't detect any of the transmissions from that transducer. So I do find that the cameras can spook a little bit more than a transducer will on sonar. Alright, so I've had 3 fish come in the last 10 minutes and turn away. So to test to see if it's indeed the camera that's driving these fish away, I'm going to actually take the camera up and out of the water. And we'll see if the next fish that comes in actually takes it. There we go, first fish that came in hit it. Well, I guess that shows just how those cameras can sometimes cause those fish to not come in. There we go. Yep, rainbow. All right, let's talk about battery life. They're going to be fairly similar. I've run many of my sonar units. This Helix 7 with its larger screen consumes more battery than some of my smaller ones, but I'm going to get anywhere from 8 to 12 hours battery life on most of these. This Markham camera, I'm getting around 7 to 8 hours, and I've played around with some other cameras like the yo-yo cameras and aquaview cameras, and they're getting 10-12 hours depending on what type of battery source you're using. So you can expect to get a full day on the ice with these things fairly easy without needing to do a recharge. Okay, let's talk about which one's more fun, in my opinion. I think that's a big thing to consider. We're going out on the ice to have fun and enjoy. I think in terms of practicality, the sonar is great. It keeps me engaged because I can see fish coming in and going. I can also know when it's time to pick up and move. It's fast and easy to deploy. The camera takes a little more time to set up, but man, it's an absolute thrill to watch in real time fish come up and take your lure underwater. And the great thing is a lot of them now have built-in DVRs, so you can record that action onto an SD card, go home and share it with your friends and family, and people just eat up that underwater video. It's just so exciting to them. It's such a mysterious world to us, right, as ice fishermen or fishermen in general. You know, we live up here in the air, then fish are down there. It's such a mystery to us, and to see all of that mystery revealed on camera is just one of the most thrilling things to me. And that is why, even though I find cameras to be a little bit more work, I do find the fun factor in cameras to be a lot higher, and that's why I always bring them out with me, even when I'm on a sort of run and gun day and I'm really just primarily relying on my sonar. I still find myself reaching for that camera because I just want to see that take on film. So I hope this helped you decide between cameras and sonar. There's tons of models out there, and there's just not enough time to go through all the different models. But below, I will put some of my favorite ice fishing sonar setups, including my favorite budget, mid, and high-end price ones. Then I'll also put some recommendations for underwater cameras too, from the budget end all the way to the upper end. All right, guys, if you have any questions, just let me know in the comments below. I hope you get out on the ice, pull some fish through some holes, and have a great winter. See you next time, and just remember, fish smarter, not harder. Bye, guys.